So let's get a glimpse into what are the physical processes that are involved in refining. Now don't worry, I'm not going to try to make you a chemical engineer, but it is important to understand the basic processes and some of the basic terminology that are involved with refining. Sometimes you'll hear the term the slate of crude that goes in. I think sometimes you'll hear that referred to as the refinery slate. What I really want you to see on this slide is there are things called the product slate. And the product slate is involved with which of these materials do they produce and also in what percentage they produce them. Now the thing that's interesting about the slide is if you go down the right hand side of the products, top to bottom is, if you will, kind of the value added or the value of the product. So the very light stuff, liquid petroleum gases, naphtha, then gasoline, and then you get down at the very bottom where it talks about asphalt. That's a low value added product that comes out of a refining process. So all of these things come out. And you're going to see that a refinery is a matter of how much equipment do you want to invest in to try to produce a more valuable product slate. Do I want to produce more gas, more middle distillates or distillates? Then that's usually going to take money into the refinery. Let me illustrate that for you as this. It's important to understand that not all refineries and not all crude are treated equally. In terms of the refineries, you can see on the upper left-hand side, we have two different refineries, one in Tyler, Texas, one in El Dorado, Arkansas, I'm sorry. And you can see that the one in Tyler produces much more gasoline, its product slate has a higher percentage of gasoline than does the one in El Dorado. You can also see that the one in El Dorado has an output of asphalt. And what that suggests is one of two things, and it's probably a combination of both. One is the Tyler refinery has more processes built in it such that they can convert some of the heavier stuff and still get gasoline out of it. It also may suggest that the Tyler refinery maybe doesn't take in as much heavy crude to produce what it produces. But the refineries themselves have different levels of capability, and you can see the crude isn't equal. If you look at the graphic on the bottom right-hand side, you can see, if you forget the two ends, which are kind of the unusual things, if we just look at the light sweet or heavy sour crude, that light sweet crude makes the greatest percentage of gasoline. Light sour crude, a little bit less. Heavy crude, even less. And so not all refineries are built to be able to produce and handle the same types of oil, and not all oil is created equal. Obviously, the heavier and the more sour you get, the more expensive equipment you need to put into the refinery to be able to allow it to handle these sorts of things. What are we talking about when we're talking about the processes? When you drive by a refinery, as it says in this lovely video with this lilting British voice doing the narration, it seems like this endless stream of pipes, but there's actually a lot of very recognizable aspects to it. And the easiest way to recognize it is by the distillation towers. Again, the principle is the lighter the stuff is, the more high value it is. You're trying to get that to separate out early, and then the stuff that's left, you either use it to produce low value products or you recycle it through a series of processes and beat up on it to generate more gas and middle distillates. I want you to watch the 3-minute YouTube video now. It does a great job of explaining all this material to you. So once we've gotten all that we're going to get out of the distillation towers, then we hand it over a process called cracking. I want you to watch this YouTube video. It is an incredible YouTube video. It takes me back to my childhood days, because this is what educational movies looked like in the, I would imagine this movie was made in the late 50s or the early 60s, the sort of stuff I watched when I was a small kid when we had the educational materials. But the key thing is cracking is a process where they take the long chain hydrocarbons and turn them into shorter hydrocarbon chains, which typically are more valuable. So watch the video, and now we move on. There are other kinds of processes. The textbook does a very nice job of describing these, but I want you to understand that I'm not trying to get you to become an expert on the process. I want you to understand distillation. I want you to understand the basic physics of how that works in terms of the temperatures and the levels at which stuff separates out. I want you to understand that cracking is something you do to generate more high-value products. And so if you're getting those big ideas and you put a little factoids with them, you're good to go. have one more YouTube video I'd like you to watch. It's kind of a long video, and it gets into a lot of detail on the various cracking processes. You don't need to get into the various details on the cracking processes, but I would like you to watch this video, and you can just play it on about 2 times speed is what I watched it at. Turn the captions on, and it's very easy to follow, to give you this last little summary of what the refining process is all about. In the last video then, we're going to look at the business of refining and look at Valero Energy, which is the largest refiner in the United States.